Test, test. All right, can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? Of course, we want to play games with the mic again, so I gotta check and make sure y'all can hear. Let me know if you can hear properly before I get started. All right, all right. Odessa, how you doing? Tamika, how y'all doing today? Abalea, I see you. Eleazar, thank y'all for joining. Miss Vance, you know, we're back again. Midweek meditations every week. We try to make sure that we're here at 5:30 Central. Last week we did a late night midweek meditations, so please go and check that out if you missed it last week. Trying to give ourselves opportunity to, explore other time frames in which people may be more available. Also, a chance for us to get out and use other opportunities into bringing out the gospel in other locations as well. So I was out um, at an event, being able to share what I know with other people. So all praises to the Most High for that. Sometimes time to change things up. So who caught last week? Who caught it last week? Hadassah, did you catch it last week? Tamiko, Elihu, what's going on, brother? I pray that you got a little bit of lesson from that. From Iron Sharpen Iron. We got examination Sundays. I pray that y'all got something out of these different things where other brothers, putting in good work for this glorious gospel. I see Sayin and SKFJ are in the building. We got more people tuning in, so if y'all could go ahead and hit that share button, get some of your friends, your family in. Somebody probably needs to hear this. Today's topic is when the sex wears off. And I know, oh, God forbid that we talk about sex a little bit, as people who read in the Bible as holy and sanctified people. But guess what? This is in the Bible. And there's no topic that is, you know, too hard to go into, too much to go into that is in the Bible. And the Bible does happen to cover everything that you can think of. So today's topic is when the sex wears off. Now, I'm talking to you married people, and I'm talking to those of you who are thinking about getting married because you may feel like you're lacking in that department. Maybe that you're a little lonely, you feel like, the drought needs to come to an end, and your thought is, the scriptures say that I got to get married to take care of that urge, and if I get married, then I'm good to go, right? Well, that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. So let's take a moment. If each and every one of you could invite a couple of friends, I'm going to go ahead and hit the invite button myself. I'm bringing some people in on the different platforms. I'm going to share, I'm going to invite, and I hope that you will do the same. So let me go ahead and hit my share button a couple times where y'all share on as well. And then we're going to get started from there. You know, just had a nice new moon celebration. The Sabbath, new moon, Passover is coming up soon. We've had a lot of great memorial and holy days that the Lord has blessed us with. And I pray that you guys are taking full advantage of them and going hard for the Lord with excitement, with joyfulness, with gladness of heart, taking that full opportunity to learn something, to fellowship, to grow in the spirit. Whatever value that you're gonna get, there's a lot of value that you should be getting out of these days. Um, but my prayer is you actually taking advantage of it. We went as a people, in this world that we live in. people go really hard for the wrong things, but do it very mediocre for the right things. So the challenge is that you start doing it very big for the Lord. And so midweek meditations, hopefully that can help you get yourself in the spirit. Hopefully, put you in the mindset that you need to be in to really start progressing and keeping God's laws, and that we make a change and a difference in our life. See, we got Antonio in the building, Judah and Esther, May Shaw in the building. I need you on standby. You never know. Judah Maccabeus, I see you out there. From Seattle, if I'm not mistaken. Shout out to those of you who are loyal, regular viewers of Midweek Meditations. Not only being the loyal viewers, but those of you who are supporting, hitting that share button, sending alms, viewing the daily verses, that opportunity to get a lot of people on the same mindset, meditating on verses that can be applicable in their life very quickly, right? In the middle of the week, on the way to the Sabbath, you will already have been building your spirit up to be ready for the next thing. So all praises for those of you who are doing that. If you're not doing it, time to start. All these daily verses, you might have shared something about the coronavirus. You might have shared something about, a black business, but did you share the gospel? That's the question. A lot of people wonder what can they do to put their brick in. Hit the share button. That's a brick right there in itself. So let's get talking. Let's get to talking a little bit about today's topic. I know that each one of y'all felt convicted and hit that share button already, so I'm not going to repeat it again. But today's topic is when the sex wears off. Now, I'm pretty sure there's some married folk on here, and I'm pretty sure that there's some people who, God has ordained and given them the, how should I say, the privilege and given the opportunity and given the permission for you to engage in sexual activity. Yes, I said it, sex. S-E-X. That thing that a lot of people are motivated and driven by. That thing that a lot of people find to be their main motivation in life, their main lust, the thing that may be the cause of them not going to get into the kingdom because they're so driven on that one thing that they can't contain it. But let's get 1 Corinthians 7:4. We're going to talk a little bit about God letting us know that sex is something that we should have, but then we're going to flip the script a little bit. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 4 says this: the wife have not power of her own body, but the husband. And likewise also the husband have not power of his own body, but to the wife. Now, you may be thinking that's talking about, I tell you when to go, or when to sit, when to do certain things in a power like that. But no, the power is being very specific. Let's go up to verse 1 and get the understanding. It says, now concerning the things whereof ye wrote unto me, it is good for man not to touch a woman. So Paul is discussing this topic that was written in a letter to him. So it was talked about. Even Paul, even some of the, your favorite disciples, your favorite apostles, the people, the holy men of the Bible from way back when, they talked about it. They wrote letters to each other about it. So this wasn't something that was taboo. This was something that needed to be spoken about so that we did it right. It says, it is good for man not to touch a woman. That's a good thing. Touch how? Touch sexually, touch physically, not, a handshake, not a hug, but to touch in a physical, sexual manner. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Marriage, one of the things about it is it's supposed to help you avoid falling into fornication, falling into sexual sin. If you have a wife, brother, that may help prevent you from going out and committing fornications or other sexual sins that God said don't do. Whether that be just have sex with someone who is not married to you, joining yourself unto a harlot, or whether that be other more extreme cases. I call them extreme because some people view some things as worse than others, but at the end of the day, God says sin is sin, right? And yes, some may be abominations, and some may be the ones that are immediately to get put to death for in the Old Testament. Whereas others you can, sacrifice an animal for. But regardless, we're trying to avoid fornication, whatever type of fornication it is. There's levels to the fornication, yes, but if you have a spouse, brother or sister, the goal is to help prevent you from fornicating, because you may have lust within your spirit that if you could just do this particular thing, then maybe it would prevent that lust. Maybe it would curb that appetite. So it says, nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife. Brother, get a wife if you need help avoiding fornication. Sister, get a husband if you need help avoiding fornication. Verse 3, let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. Showing you that, okay, yes, I'm going to get married. My thought process may be, if I get married, then I can satisfy some of those burning desires. So that's my thought process. If that is the case, we got to understand as the spouse that we actually have a responsibility to help that spouse cover up those, not cover up, but, avoid fornication, if you will. That's a responsibility. That's where the due benevolence comes into play. That's where the rendering of due benevolence comes into play, because now that means I am supposed to give this to my spouse. That is a role of mine. That is a job of mine. Now, remember, we just talked about a topic of why did I get married, and there were various reasons why you got married, and I want you to really combine the thoughts of last week's and this week's meditation. When we put this all together, the goal is so that we really start to begin to think on the level of, as a spouse, this is what I'm supposed to do. And if I'm going to make my marriage better, if I'm going to actually get married for the right reasons, if I'm going to live up to what a spouse should live up to, then I better get into the Bible. So it says, the wife have not power of her own body, meaning the wife is supposed to render due benevolence when that brother, that husband, is in need. Likewise, also the husband have not power of his own body. So even the wife has needs. Even the wife has needs that must be catered to. And as the husband, it is your job to render due benevolence. Because that's something that a lot of people are really focused on. They need that sex. As a matter of fact, God doesn't talk about it one time. That ain't the only verse that God inspired to be put into the Bible. Let's go to Hebrews 13:4. It says, marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled. So even here, we get a little understanding. We get some understanding that marriage is honorable. And one of the cheap things about marriage is it leaves you with an undefiled bed. You want to do certain things, well, do them with your spouse. And then it's no problem. Do them with someone that's not your spouse. Now we got a problem. It says, but whoremongers, meaning people who are engaged in that sex, and they're not supposed to because they're not married, and adulterers, meaning people who may do that or go outside of their marriage. Maybe they are married, but now they're bringing in extra stuff or doing extra things that they're really not supposed to be doing, such as threesomes, such as swinging, such as, I don't want to go all the way down the list. You guys are grown and you know what goes on in the world. Some of you may know more than others, as a matter of fact. But it says, but whoremongers and adulterers God will judge. Understanding the importance of a spouse is to prevent judgment, because if your goal is to avoid fornication, there's an understanding that fornication causes you to be a whoremonger or an adulterer, which will then result in judgment. And that judgment may not be the nicest of judgments. Judgment could be STDs. Judgment could be someone who's jealous, then deciding to take matters in their own hands. If I can't have them, nobody can, type of a judgment. It says, verse 5, let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as ye have, for he hath said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. So God gave you a spouse because he wasn't going to leave you or forsake you in a position of where you couldn't overcome your thoughtfulness toward fornication. Yeah, that's one of people's hardest trials in many cases. That's a common trial that a lot of people go through. Not to say that other people don't go through many different trials, and maybe many are not common. But, whereas my trial is not drugs, or my trial is not, hatred or whatever it is, my trial may be lust. And his trial may be lust, and her trial may be lust. And all these people may have this lust trial. So what I'm trying to say is, this is a trial it's very common in our community, whereas other trials may be a little less common. Somebody is just tuning in. Somebody is probably not knowing what we're getting into when the sex wears off. Brothers, we talking about sex today. We're going to talk about it from a biblical perspective, though, so don't get too excited. No, this is not going to be raunchy, as you might have thought it was when you saw that word. No, this is not going to be explicit and R-rated, but it is going to be real. It is going to be adult. It is going to be something that you need to think about at home in front of and with your wife or your husband, in the consideration of, okay, what is life really about? What is marriage really about? You got a couple people who just jumped in. Yamilia, Danielle, Katura, all praises for y'all tuning in. But I really got to ask y'all to go ahead and hit that share button one more time. Yana, just in case you didn't get your friends and family in, now's the opportunity. So let's read on. Did God only deal with the New Testament? Does he have any Old Testament scriptures as well? It says in Proverbs 5 and 18. Proverbs 5 and 18. See, some of y'all probably read these scriptures a lot, but some of y'all don't. So it says, let thy fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Let her be as the loving hind and the pleasant roe. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times. Oh, Azaniah. Hey, don't start talking about that. No, it's in the Bible. You see, the scripture is letting you know that the wife and her body parts will be pleasant unto you. They will satisfy you. And how often? It say at all times. And be thou ravished always with her love. It says, and wilt thou, my son, be ravished with a strange woman and embrace the bosom of a stranger? So, no, you're not supposed to embrace the bosom of a stranger, only with your wife, brother. Sister, you're only supposed to do that for your husband. Don't be doing that for strange men. But yeah, the Bible does talk about it. The Bible goes heavily into some things, and even certain books of the Bible put a lot of focus and energy on it to where it could get a little risque. And I don't want to go all the way into it, but, shout out to the Song of Solomon if you need a little bit of inspiration or thought. It may be helpful to you. But let's move on in consideration of when the sex wears off, because that's when the sex is going on, always and at all times. Genesis gives us a little bit of understanding about being one flesh. Mark gives us a little bit of understanding about one flesh, being joined together, But when we really think about it, today's topic ain't about sex. Today's meditation ain't about the physical act itself. It's about when that act is no longer happening. And when I say that, you got different perspectives of no longer happening. It could be that you've already, done what you were going to do for today, and now you got to go about the rest of your day and live life. It could be, well, I gotta take a week off because this that time of the month, and I can't really enjoy myself in this moment because the Lord has decided to put a purification process into play. Okay, it could be that you have taken time away for prayer and fasting. It could be that you just had a baby and you need that recovery period. It could be that you done got a little older and things don't work as good as they used to. But there are going to be moments in life where sex is not going to carry you. All the happiness that you have in that moment, when that moment is over, are you still going to be happy? Once you're done and you go, about the rest of your day, are you still smiling from that moment, or has it worn off a little bit? The fireworks are done. And let's just be honest, for some, I'm sure that somebody can say that maybe this is true. After a certain amount of time, years down the road, it ain't as exciting anymore. It's not as motivating anymore. So then what is? See, we really got to examine when sex is not the picture, is not the thing that is carrying your marriage and relationship, then what is? Does your wife have any other value besides sex? Does your husband, sister, have any other value besides what he brings to the bedroom? If that was not going on, if you wasn't going to get that, would he still be valuable to you? Would she still be valuable to you? Well, let's step back for a second. Because when the sex wears off, you still got to uphold the duties of marriage. Oh, there's more duties to marriage than just sex? You mean I actually have to do other things? You mean I have to have other value besides my body? Yes, sister, you're not just a piece of meat. You either, brother. There's other things that you can bring to the table, is what I'm getting at. Do we not agree? People on here, let's just take a moment to look at some comments to see if anybody thinks that maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe, no, it's all about sex. That's all it's about. And no other reason shall I get married. I don't see anybody naysaying or commenting against it. I'm going to give y'all a few seconds. Just in case maybe somebody's going to throw their hand up at the last minute. Or maybe not. Because maybe what I'm saying is correct. Maybe somebody can agree. So, sister, you don't want to be looked at as a object, and that's all he wants from you. Brother, you don't want, maybe you do, brother. Maybe you do want to just feel like that's all you're good for. But let's just be real. You better bring some other value to the table, because that's not always going to be what it is. So then what else then? Well, let's start with the brothers today. Let's figure out what else is valuable. Let's actually start with Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25. Because the Bible just tells us all that we need to know. And if we really look at it from the lens of the Bible and meditate from that perspective, then we have opportunity for some growth. But when we fail to acknowledge what God says, when we fail to look at this Bible and we just do it on our own way, that's how we end up in trouble. Ephesians 5:25 says, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. Stop right there. So now we're comparing ourselves to Christ. We are supposed to, as husbands, that's what I am. I'm a husband. I have a wife, and I am supposed to love my wife the same way that Christ loved the church. And how did Christ do that? Well, he gave himself for it, meaning he sacrificed himself for it. If a brother and a sister get together, but he never loves her enough to be willing to sacrifice himself for her, then there's a problem in that marriage. Now, where that problem is, it may be on the man's side, it may be on the woman's side, but rest assured there's a problem in the marriage. You, brother, should get yourself prepared mentally to understand that if you're about to get married or if you are already married, you should be willing to sacrifice for that spouse. If you marry somebody that you're not willing to sacrifice for, then what did you do it for? Maybe you was only doing it for the sex. And maybe you weren't doing it for the right reasons. So it says that he might sanctify and cleanse it. So Christ sanctified and cleansed the church. So likewise, you husbands got to sanctify and cleanse your wife. Now, let's get into that. Now, see, that's a task. See, it's one thing to, to make it to the bedroom at night, but to be able to sanctify and cleanse your wife by the washing of, with the washing of water by the word. Man, brothers, now we got to step back a little bit, because now this ain't natural instincts kicking in. Now it's going to take a little bit of preparation. Now it's going to take a little bit of thought. Now it's going to take someone maybe to teach you something. Maybe that was your game in another scenario too. But, sex is a natural instinct. And I think you'll get by without me showing you how to do that. But when it comes to the sanctifying and cleansing, it was sought to be put into the Bible that this must happen. It says that he might sanctify. Let's look up the word sanctify. Let's define that thing. Define sanctify. It says set apart as or declare holy. You're supposed to be, brother, able to set your wife apart and declare her holy. Now, women are probably not coming into the marriage as holy as they think they are. The thing about marriage is when you come together as two people becoming one flesh, you should improve. So, sisters, don't get all bunched up. Don't get uptight right now when I say that you didn't come in perfect, and when I say that you are not already sanctified. Just understand what God is trying to say. That the husband is like Christ, right? And the husband's job is to do what Christ did, right? And Christ sanctified the church. So the husband is supposed to sanctify the wife. It says to make legitimate or binding by religious sanction. It says free from sin, purify. Now, here's an example of why one could say that a wife needs to be sanctified. Let's just be honest with ourselves for a minute. Step back. Don't bunch up right here. This is for you to examine yourself, okay? 9 out of 10 people on this class right now probably engaged in some sort of fornication in the past. All right. You can admit that to yourself. You don't got to raise your hand. You don't have to say, bring it out right now. You can stay quiet. You don't have to hit the like button. You don't have to do any of that. But you can be honest with yourself and say, yeah, you're right. When I was a teenager, I was hot in the pants. Sister, you shouldn't have been wearing pants anyway. Brothers was very lustful, chasing after women they shouldn't have been dealing with. You weren't not even in a position to be married. You were still a child. You have no ability to take care of responsibilities of a marriage, let alone are you thinking about marriage. So that meant what? You was in the midst of sin. But when a husband gets on the scene, that should shut down the wife's desire to go and commit fornication, adultery, etc., to fulfill those lusts. Should, if people doing their thing right. That sounded a little more graphic than I expected. But we're being honest today, guys. We're being real. We're talking about real things. And, for a lot of women, it's easy for them to stay faithful than it is for men. And what I mean by that is when a husband comes into the building, if he is the proper provider and does what he's supposed to do, the woman is happy to be at home in the protection that he provides, in the stability that he provides. And that in turn will help her free herself from sin. Because now she's under her hedge of protection. Now she's actually having sex lawfully, according to God, how he anticipated for it to be. She's not out there putting herself at risk of being somebody's baby mama. She's not out there putting herself at risk of contracting STDs. She's not out there ruining her reputation. She's not out there capturing the spirit of different men and now wondering why she's unstable within herself. Because science says that every man that a woman has ever been with leaves a part of his DNA inside of her. And so if that be true in science, we probably find that to be true in the Bible too, though. If these things be true, we do find that to be true, by the way. If these things be true, then isn't this a benefit to getting married? Isn't this something that is beneficial? But yes, let's step back for a second, because we're talking about when the sex wears off. So what about when it's not that, though? You know, because there's other ways to sanctify besides that particular sin. You know, it's a lot of people who need to be corrected, and they need someone to correct them. And as we move from the father being the hedge of protection for a young daughter, and then the father giving the daughter into the hands of marriage to a husband and that responsibility transferring, it becomes the husband's role to correct his wife. If she's in the midst of sinful thoughts, correct that. If she's giving up sinful prayers, vowing vows, the husband has the ability to annul that, to veto that, as we see in Numbers. It says that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, meaning that you're teaching your wife things in the Bible that she would have not gotten on her own. Let's step back for a second. There's some wives on here today. Tell me that your husbands show by, a couple of likes or something like that, that your husbands have brought you Bible verses and correction through the Bible that have made you better today than you were before. Tell me that's not true, that maybe you have some things about you that you need to change, and if it wasn't for your husband being able to bring them up in a biblical fashion, that you would not be benefiting from that. Somebody is going to be honest and tell the truth and say, you're right. I am benefiting from my husband, even though I don't listen to him half the time, even though that's because I wanted to do my own thing. But when he brought this verse to me, when he brought the Bible to me, he might have calmed my spirit down, and in the moment I might have not reacted right, but I'm better because of him. If we could acknowledge that, sisters, if you could acknowledge that, we're in a powerful place to understand that when the sex wears off, that is a benefit of being married. That he can help keep you out of trouble with the Most High God. Now, for those of you brothers who ain't helping, shame on you, because you're not providing the value that you're supposed to provide, that Christ in the home type figure. If you're the devil in the home instead of the Christ in the home, then may the Lord be with you. But we have, as husbands, we have a tone to set. We have a sanctification process to bring about to our household. And if we're unable to do that, if we don't do that, then are we really the Christ in the home? See, a lot of brothers want to be respected, and will say, you don't see the Christ in me, sister? Well, you got to do the things with Christ. You got to do the WWJD. What would Jesus do, right? It says that he might sanctify and cleanse it. Let's get a couple of verses. James 4:8 says this. James chapter 4, verse 8. Draw nigh unto God, and he will draw nigh unto you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners. See, I know that somebody can relate to the example I'm about to give. It says, cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. See, the same way that you are out there washing your hands all the way up to your elbows all of a sudden, You're ransacking the stores for soap and hand sanitizer. That same level of cleanliness now you want to have because coronavirus is running rampant. That's the spirit that you should have with correcting yourself in sin. Your husband is the excuse me, let me take a moment. Your husband is the Purell in your household. Your husband is the dial soap in your household. He is supposed to clean you. And the cleaning is happening to sinners. So, sisters, if you a sinner, your husband is supposed to be helping you fix that. Brothers, step back for a minute. If all you do is provide sex, you're not really purifying nobody. You're not sanctifying anybody. You're not cleansing anybody. If that's not what you're doing, then when the sex wears off, you're useless, brother. What good are you? Oh, well, those 5 minutes are gone. Okay, whatever amount of time it is, not disrespecting nobody, but once those moments are over, what good are you? Are you able to help purify your wife? Are you able to purify her heart? She got a mind that's weak. And whatever's happening in the world is easily going to beset her if you're not careful. She's going to make some decisions in life that are wrong. Are you there to help purify her heart and help her make the right decisions? Or are you allowing your wife to be double-minded? She said this but did that. Are you allowing her to not live up to the promises that she promised? Because as we talk about the oath in Numbers that a husband can veto, well, a lot of times what happens is wives will promise something, overpromise and underdeliver. But knowing your wife, you can help your wife's word be so valuable. You can help your wife actually achieve what she said she was going to achieve so that she can receive the glory and the honor that she's supposed to receive. A lot of people have bad reputations, and if they just had somebody there to help them fix that reputation or prevent them from ruining that reputation, how great could they be? And that's the role that a husband has to play within the house from time to time. He has to go and cleanse and purify the wife. It says, verse 7, let's read up one verse. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. See, the goal of the husband is to help the wife resist the devil. To understand that if you do these things, wife, that you'll actually be considered submissive to God and be worthy of the kingdom. Now let's go to 2 Peter 2:18. All right, y'all stay in the spirit now. Somebody then went off the thought and stuck. When the sex wears off is what we're talking about. We're not talking about the sexual act in the moment. We're talking about when that's over. When you're done, okay. It's a new day now. We had to go to work today. We still got to eat. We still got children. We still have life to live. Now where's your value? Are you valuable after that moment of where you ignored the rest of the world? Or was your value only when you were in that room? Shout out to Malek for tuning in. Jariah, Gabrielle, Barry, I see you, Manoah, Dewada. Hey, all praises for Nicole Bennett. Shout out to y'all. I need y'all to step back for a minute and think about when the sex wears off, what is your value to your spouse then? What good are you after that moment? Okay, all smiles then. Get up, and now let's see what your face look like. So where are we in the Bible? We're in 2 Peter 2:18. It says, for when they speak great swelling words of vanity, they allure through the lust of the flesh. Through much wantonness, those that were clean escape them who live in error. See, we just read in James that the husband, we were connecting cleanliness to sin, right? And when you can clean someone, you remove the sin, help them remove themselves from the sin, in fact. You then are able to escape those that live in error. You are able to put yourself around the right type of people. So how many of us were hanging around the wrong people? You know, how many of us, how many of you sisters, because we're talking about the brothers right now. So how many of you sisters were hanging out with people that you shouldn't hang with, and a husband was able to come in and help you see, yeah, that's really not good. That's not good for you to be in that company. And even if he didn't help you see by telling you blatantly and directly, don't hang out with those people, you were more desirous to hang out with your husband, to be around your family after you got married, that it took you out of the realm of being with those people who were not good for your spirit. You know, let's just be honest. We're going back. You know, many of us were hanging out with people who were definitely in the midst of sin, you know, just years ago when we were not keeping God's commandments. And once we started to keep God's commandments, we started to move around and have less of those friends. Now, we may still have held on to some. Maybe you still talking to your wicked mother and father and sister and brother. Maybe you still dealing with your wicked friends to some capacity. But now you don't even have time, because now you're doing work for the Lord, which your husband may be setting forth the great example of what to be done. Maybe now, because you're celebrating the Sabbath with your husband, you're not at the club. Maybe now, because you're eating lawful food, you're at home cooking instead of at the catfish restaurant. You know, maybe now, and what that's doing is helping you escape from them who live in error. Because imagine if Isaiah 65 were, let's get it real quick, Isaiah 65. Hold a minute. Give me a second. Maybe I got the wrong verse. Oh, here we go. Isaiah 66. Isaiah 66, verse 15. For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the garden behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith the Lord. So I used to always use an example of, if you're around sinners, when the Lord come and judge them, you might get the judgment too. Because when this fire and this flame comes, you know, everything's getting consumed together, which is right next to each other. Imagine if the Lord judges you in a car accident, but you have people in the car with you. So what am I saying? Going back to the verse that we were just leaving, you can escape those who live in error, meaning you won't even be around the people who are about to get the judgment. See, a lot of us right now are watching the news and saying, oh, they shutting down sporting events and rodeos and festivals, you know, quarantining whole countries because there's plagues on this earth now, which have always been, that people are scared of. And the way to prevent people from getting the plague is for them not to be around other people. And lo and behold, you could have already been doing that by being a righteous example and being with your husband instead of being with the heathen, being with your spouse instead of being with those people who are not of the Lord. John chapter 1, 1 John chapter 1, verse 7. 1 John chapter 1 and verse 7. I see Zafan, Gad, Israel joining in. See, we got a couple people also joining in on other platforms. But 1 John chapter 1 verse 7 says, but if we walk in the light and he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another, and the blood of Jesus Christ, his son, cleanses us from all sin. Remember, we're trying to be like Christ, man. And when the sex wears off, if you don't have that Christ-like appearance, we got to ask ourselves, what's the value of us in this relationship then? It says that Christ cleanses us from all sin. If we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. So then what becomes the thing? Because sisters in a marriage may come and not feel like they have sin. And brother, if you are not in a position to help her see it and help her understand where her flaws are, then she is now deceived herself into thinking that she's perfect and she's not working toward the kingdom. And that becomes your fault, brother, if you can't help her see the error in her way. You know, if we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. Do you want your wife to be deceiving herself? Or are you the brother that's deceived too, thinking that she don't have no sin? Every brother and every sister has sin. There's no man that sinneth not, as it says in 1 Kings. So your job, brother, as the spiritual hedge of protection in the building, the one that's the stronger vessel, the one that's supposed to be the head of the house, is to help your wife see her sin, to see her flaws. Now, I know it's hard, brother. The sister gonna get on, cuss you out for trying to tell her that this is where her error is. She's not gonna want to hear it. She's not gonna want to believe it. But isn't that what all Israel do? Christ has told us many times what we're supposed to do. God tells us many times what we're supposed to do. We do the opposite and then try to find justification and reason why what we're doing is okay. But at the end of the day, we got to go through that trial just like Christ went through that trial. Christ had to fight against his own people who were not willing to listen to him. And brother, you too, when the sex wears off, are going to have to fight for your wife's cleanliness. You're going to have to work hard to prove to her, you got to fix this. You're going to have to put a lot of effort into cleansing her and not allowing her to be dirty, if you will. It says, if we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. If we confess our sins, you got to get your wife to confess, brother. He is faithful and just to forgive us our sins. Because if you don't get your wife to confess her sin, then how can she be forgiven of her sin? You know, we want our friends, our family, our loved ones to be forgiven of their sins because we want them to be able to be eligible to enter into the kingdom. We want them to receive salvation. We want them to be given grace and mercy for all the wicked things that we have done in our past. It says, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. As a husband, we got to clean our wives from all unrighteousness. And that is how we get to the point where Christ can do his job, because Christ has given us the charge to serve in his capacity within the home. It says, if we say we have not sinned, we make him a liar and the word is not in us. So if you don't help your wife find the sin in her and quit allowing her to deceive herself and to think that she is without sin, the truth ain't in you. And in further understanding, as we read through the scriptures, we begin to make Christ a liar because we walk around deceiving not only ourselves, but now that deceivableness is going to other people. Now we got to walk in light. So you got to get your wife to walk in light. Now, another word was used, sanctify, here in Ephesians chapter 5. It says that he might sanctify and cleanse. You know, two of those words are very synonymous, but let's find some ways that we do the sanctification process as a brother, as a husband. When the sex wears off, are you sanctifying your wife? Because that feeling that she had of pleasure and euphoria only gonna go so far. Prayerfully, she received that pleasure. But if she did or did not, that's not the question right now. The question is, when it wears off, then what? 1 Timothy 4:5. For it is sanctified by the word of God and prayer. The thing that sanctifies a person is the word of God and prayer. So, brothers, you got to be able to dwell with your wife according to knowledge, meaning get into the scriptures. You know, a lot of people don't have their priorities correct in life, and they don't have balance in life. And a husband, hopefully, he's the one that has it. And if he's not, you know, maybe the wife will be influential as well. But, you know, as a husband, we have to be able to sanctify our wife, right? So in order to do that, we're going to have to bring the word to her, make her spend time in the word. See, a lot of people get beside themselves and get so busy with everything else in life that they never give time to the Lord. And as a husband, a good husband that has value outside of sex, you're going to make sure that your wife is in the word. You're going to make sure that your wife is praying. And if y'all are not doing it together, you need to start. And if you are doing it together, you also need to encourage individual prayer as well, because you can never get enough prayer. You can never get enough study, but always circle back around to clarify and get on one accord so that, you know, one person, being the wife, you know, in this case, doesn't go off and pray for something that the husband would not approve of, as we read in Numbers. And I know I keep saying as we read, and I haven't gone there, but I encourage you to read it for yourself. So I'll throw that verse out there. That is Numbers chapter 30. So read that, the whole chapter. It says here, for it is sanctified by the word of God and prayer. That's the sanctification process. That is how you get some sanctification in your household. You know, the sex is not the sanctifying instrument, tool, activity. The word of God and the prayer is the thing that does that job. 1 Peter 3 and 7. It says, likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge. Live with your wife according to the words of God, because knowledge is talking about the laws of God, as we read in Malachi as a precept, giving honor unto the wife. See, a lot of people think honor to the wife is flowers, rings, and dates. Is showering the one, putting up on a pedestal. But in real honor, it's about the knowledge that you bring to the table. Make your wife more knowledgeable than she ever would have been without you. Make your wife more understanding of God's laws than she would have been without you. Make sure that you do that. Dwell with them according to knowledge. That's how y'all live. She wasn't living like that before she got with you. If she was, hopefully you not taking her down, you're taking her further up. Positive role in life. See, that's the value you got to bring. Yeah, okay, you got sex. Okay, cool. But without the sex, what value are you is the question. Giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel. See, if we acknowledge that the wife is the weaker vessel, that must mean we are the stronger vessel. And there's some brothers that probably ain't the stronger vessel, which then we have wives who feel like they have to play the stronger role. They have to be the man of the house. They have to do things that the man should be doing. But that shouldn't be. It should be that the wife looks at her husband as the stronger vessel, and the husband looks at the wife as the weaker vessel. And if your wife is that great, then that means you got a lot of work to do to be that much greater. And if not, then you might not be of any value once the sex wears off. See, let's just be honest. There are some women that only keep you men around for one thing and one thing only. But I challenge you to be so valuable in your wife's life, so valuable in her life, that she know that she'd be stupid to not be with you. That she can tell her friends, her family, that that's the best decision that she ever made. That the children can see that too. It says, and being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. See, that's why I'm saying you got to be able to pray together. Because if you don't have certain values outside of sex, the prayers that are had may be hindered by the wickedness that's within one of us. So it's of utmost value that you find ways to make sure that prayers are uplifted, that prayers are performed, but not only that, that you're not the one in John 9:31 where it says the Most High don't hear the prayer of sinners. That's why the cleansing process was so important. Because if you do things in the right order, husband, cleanse your wife. Okay, cool. Now she cleansed, she purified. Have your wife pray. Y'all pray together. Y'all agree on that prayer. Okay, cool. Now even when she praying on her own, those are good prayers. Okay, cool. Now we got a route to be heirs to the kingdom. See, the thing is, we're not going to get this kingdom alone. If the wife don't play her part, if the husband don't play his part, there's no kingdom. And I promise you, you're not going to sex your way into the kingdom. You know, your bedroom activity is not the qualifier for the kingdom. You know, a lot of people, their focus is on so many different things, but they're not things that qualify you for the kingdom. Oh, I just wanted to do this, this, and that, you know, get these new shoes. I wanted to wear this particular outfit, get my hair done this way. Well, that don't get you into the kingdom. Oh, well, you know, we having date night and we going out to this restaurant. That don't get you into the kingdom. Oh, well, you know, you got to figure out what gets you into the kingdom. And the things that get you into the kingdom is the keeping of God's laws, the promotion of the gospel, the prevention or the avoidance of sin. Things like this is what helps you. And when you're in the right relationship, those will be the things that you do. When you put those bricks in for the Lord, that's helping you get the kingdom. But if the husband helps you with the proper priority, you can feel more confident. You can feel like your calling and election is sure. And I think we all want to feel certainty. I think we all want to be sure. So, sisters, use your husband to that advantage. Choose a husband that is actually going to tell you when you're wrong, that is actually going to bring a scripture to you and say, this is what you need to repent of, that is going to help you prioritize your life and to say, you know what, I got to have enough balance because I can't offend in any one of these areas. Not only do I have to fulfill this duty that the Most High gave me, I have to fulfill this one as well. I can't just do one and then reject the other because they might have both been requirements that were needed to get the kingdom. So, you know, yes, sex is one of those things because it told you to give due benevolence, meaning you have a role to keep your husband from fornicating or vice versa, or your wife from fornicating. But at the same time, that's not the only thing you do. You have to be valuable in all these different areas. But a lot of people want to just focus on one area and neglect the other and think that that's going to carry them over. It's not. You better learn to multitask a little better. But better yet, don't multitask. Just give proper time to each. Be able to balance. Give full attention to all of it, but give time to each of them. So, where are we now? It says, finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another, love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous, not rendering evil for evil or railing for railing, but contrariwise blessings, knowing that ye are thereunto called, that ye shall inherit a blessing. Now, this begins to go into love of brotherhood, but that came after the wife and the husband were together, showing you that that's a part of it, but not the only thing. See, you got to be good with the brothers, the sisters, but you also got to be good with your spouse. Reading up to verse, you know what? Let's read up to verse 1. You know how the Bible get. You want to read the whole book sometimes when you just thought you was going to pull one verse, but you got to pull verses. Likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands. If the wife is going to be in subjection, the husband got to be in a position to be subjected to. See, husbands got to take their role. If we understand that Corinthians puts the order of the home, the church, as God, Christ, man, woman, children, then get in your role, man. Don't be in subjection to your wife. because then you're not valuable as you should be. Oh, you're in subjection to her, then maybe the sex is all you good for. And now you're not able to help your wife correct herself when she need to be corrected. It says, and a lot of brothers, let's just step back and be honest for a minute. I'm sure that, it's a lot of brothers out there that need to really understand that in order for you to in order for your wife to be in subjection, you actually have to do something to put her in subjection. In order for your wife to be in subjection, you have to give her something to be in subjection to. It says that if any obey not the word, remember how you cleansed your wife, how you sanctified your wife, you came at her with the word. So if any obey not the word, a wife that don't obey the word, they also may be without the word won by the conversation of the wives. So if you as a man are not obeying the word and you're not bringing that to your wife, hopefully she's spiritual enough to then try to put you and help you get into your position to be a leader in the home by using the word of God. See, that's where you got a good wife, brothers, where even though you haven't done your, she is upholding her job and helping you get into your job. It's one thing when a woman has authority over a man because she wants it and she took it. It's another thing when it's because you're not doing your job. And it's an even greater thing to consider when a woman recognizes, I'm not supposed to be in this position and I'm going to do everything I can to help build you up to that position. I'm not going to usurp the authority. I'm not going to disrespect you. I'm not going to demean you and talk about you. I'm going to build you up. And that's where a wife can really be valuable. A wife can be a make or break difference between if a man is a king or not. If a woman would only treat her husband like a king, then maybe he could actually live up to being a king. Now, it's the chicken or the egg, which comes first. Whichever comes first, you just make sure that the value gets brought. If you already operating properly, all praises to the Most High. Put your wife in order and keep it moving. If you're not operating properly and the sister is having to help sanctify you, having to win you over by conversation, hey, all praises once again, because the Most High gave you grace and mercy so for you to get right. But you better get right. Don't let your wife stay in that position all her life, because the scriptures do say that when a woman take care of a man, it's going to be a bad thing in Sirach. It's saying that, she going to get full of anger after she done took care of you for too long. It says, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wise, while they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear. See, sisters, we're going to flip-flop back and forth to man, woman, so catch it in between. But you women, if you have more than sex to offer, if it ain't just your body, then what do you have? Do you have chaste conversation coupled with fear that can win your husband over? I pray that you do. I pray that there are more and more sisters who are learning how to talk to their husbands in a way that can bring them to being better men. I pray for that. There's a lot of sisters that have that quality. Hopefully they don't overshadow it with other negative qualities, but they have that quality. And there are moments where they use it right correctly, and there are moments when they don't. But that's the thing. If we're examining ourselves, a lot of us have put so much energy into being so sexual, but never put energy into being chaste. Never put energy into having good conversation. Talking dirty isn't the only type of conversation that a man could appreciate. If you have more value, if you have value when the sex wears off, then what are we dealing with? We're dealing with a woman that has a whole lot of things to bring to the table, a whole lot of value. The scriptures say that a woman's worth can be far more than rubies. That's how you get there. If all you got is sex, you won't be a ruby. I'm sorry to tell you. It says, whose adorning, let it not be the outward adorning of plaited hair. Don't let your value only be your outward appearance and the wearing of gold or putting on apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart and that which is not corruptible. Because guess what, sister? You sexy now. You look good now. Now you a lust trap right now. You can get a man's attention and you can get him let me find a PG way to say it. I mean, I'm gonna use real words though. You can arouse him and entice him, but what about when that thing wear off? What about when your body in its corruptible state starts to sag and droop and lose its appeal? What about that? See, if you have value outside of sex when the sex wears off, even when your body has declined and you no longer have the assets that you once had, are you the ornament? Excuse me, it says, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit. Do you have that, sister? Do you have the meek and the quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price? See, I don't find in the Bible where it says that sex is a great price, but yet people are paying for that in the prostitution ring, right? People at the strip club paying for that. So that's that. That shows you that, okay, as much money as you spent there, that ain't even that much in comparison to the great price that a woman is worth if she has a meek and a quiet spirit. See, if you got value when the sex wears off, it's going to be worth more than the bands you spent at the strip club, which you shouldn't have been doing because that was sin and you should have had a spouse so that you could avoid fornication. And you supposed to be at the strip club too, so stop it. So it says, for after this manner in the old times, the holy women also. See, we talking about holy women right here. See, if you're not a holy woman, then you can be content with your outward appearance only. But if you're a holy woman, and I think that everybody on here wants to be one, and you'd be mad at me if I told you that you weren't holy. You'd be mad if I told you about your flaws. Remember, the husband got to point out those flaws, even though the woman will get mad at him. It says, for after this manner in the old times, the holy women also who trusted in God. See, their trust in God actually came through their husband, though. Because God was the head of Christ. Christ was the head of man who, if we're modeling ourselves after Christ, as we're discussing from Ephesians chapter 5, then the trust has to go through the husband to be sanctified, to be cleansed, etc. Adorn themselves, being in subjection unto their own husbands. See, sisters, if you're in subjection to your own husband, it's because you're bringing value to him, he's bringing value to you outside of sex. Even as Sarah obeyed Abraham. She was obedient. She obeyed Abraham. She did what Abraham said. That must mean that he had value to make her stay in that position. Okay, yes, she could have also, won him over by the conversation. But whenever it happened, she saw value outside of sex. Calling him Lord. Abraham was her Lord. See, a lot of women want to look at it and say, I don't need a man. Jesus is the only man for me. Jesus, I got a personal relationship. Nah, sis. If you really see value in a man, you're going to know that he is your personal relationship with Christ. It says, whose daughter ye are. If you want to use the proverb, as is the mother, so is the daughter, hopefully it'll be positive in this case, where you can be like Sarah and obey your husband. You can be like Sarah and have the hidden man of the heart with a meek and quiet spirit. Not just pretty, not just beautiful, not just dress well, not just those things, not just the enticing things to get you that moment of pleasure, but when I'm going through some things and I got some decisions to make and I need help with this, are you there for me? Are you valuable for me? It says, as long as you do well. See, you're only that valuable when you do well, when you have value. You're not that valuable in the moments where you don't have value. So the sex didn't wear off and you ain't no good. You ain't doing me no good. Nah, that's not a good look for you, sis. So now I'm getting double the lack of blessing in the moment because the one blessing is done with and over. We're finished with that for now. And now when I need you for something else, you're not there. Problem. The sex wears off, and now what? Now that's why your sister's got an angry husband. Because maybe your value ain't right. Maybe you're not doing what you need to be doing. And I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. But that's one reason it's so difficult is because we're so caught up in our own mind that we only do it our way and we're not actually in subjection to our husband. Subjection to your husband, it's going to come in so many different manners. And disobedience is also going to come in so many different manners. And you got to check it. You got to realize, you got to understand it. And if you don't, then maybe your value will never achieve the value that it should achieve. And maybe all you have is that sexiness. Maybe all you have is that body. And guess what, sis? When that body's done with, then your marriage is done with. And maybe you won't physically be divorced. But, you know, just because y'all legally married don't mean it feel like a marriage. I think somebody may know what I'm talking about. You know, I don't know who needs to hear this, but when the Most High present messages like this in the Bible, he writes it down for a reason. And when it comes out, it's because somebody needed to hear it. It says, as long as you do well and are not afraid with any amazement. Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. So Ephesians chapter 5 says in verse 27 that he might present it to himself a glorious church. Christ presented a glorious church. So if a man is synonymous to Christ in this and a woman is synonymous to the church, the household, that means it's the man's job to present his wife a certain way. It's the man's job to present his wife glorious, just like Christ is presenting the church glorious. Not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that it should be holy and without blemish. See, women, just be honest, you got a lot of problems. You know, men, we got problems too. You know how sisters get. Well, the men got problems too. Sis, please stop forgetting the point. We talking about what the scripture is actually saying right here, and it doesn't mean that it's not two sides of the coin. But sis, y'all got a lot of problems. You got mental health issues. You got insecurities. You got bad habits. You got lack of understanding of certain things. You know, you're irresponsible with money. You know, whatever your thing is. Like I said, men got these same issues. But it's a man's job to get rid of those issues. So if you are bad with money, let me teach you how to be more financially responsible. Sis, if you don't know when to be quiet and how to not present yourself as a loudmouth, stereotypical loudmouth black woman or whatever, let me help you fix that. You know, if you don't know how to maintain a proper diet and exercise, let me help you with that. If you don't know when it's time to who to talk to and what to keep private, where's the discretion, let me help you with that. See, whatever the spot, the wrinkle, the blemish is, I'm just giving a couple of examples. But you got more examples. If your breath stink, let me help you with that. If you snore too loud, let me help you with it. Whatever your spot or wrinkle is. And of course, if we're being serious and if we're being honest, we're talking about sin here. When we talk about these spots, these blemishes and wrinkles, we're not talking about just things that we don't like. Oh, I wish her eyes were shaped more almondy than apricot seed-ish. Whatever shape eyes are, I don't know. I'm just making up stuff. That's not what we're talking about. So we're not talking about, oh, your spot or wrinkle is you don't have the, you know, you need a breast job, right? That's not the thing that the husband's supposed to be fixing here in particular. We're talking about sin. Why did I use that example? Because when the sex wears off, when the body corrupts, those are the things that we're not supposed to be so focused on. Yes, they're there, but I'm trying to fix your spirit. I'm trying to present you properly to get into the kingdom. That's what my role is as a husband. If my wife is paying attention, she needs to know that my role is to present you gloriously. And I can't present you gloriously if you won't allow me to fix that spot, that wrinkle, or that blemish. And if you got a bunch of blemishes, I got to fix them all, not just one. Not just let you get away with this and then fix that, but that's a lot of work. And if you're being valuable to someone that outside of sex, then that's what it's going to take, though. A lot of work. It says, so ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. You know, as we step back for a minute, I love my body. I think that was a lesson, a meditation that I did recently too. Shout out to Yakin for making the thumbnails for me. Made me think about changing that topic title. And you can go to midweekmeditations.com to check that one out if you missed it. I love my body. And that's in reference to if I love my body and I want to be a healthy body, right? I don't want sickness and disease. I want to be in proper shape. I want to have clear skin. I want, all of these different things. You take care of that as a man. And you have to think about the fact that the same way that you would take care of yourself, you better make sure that you will do it for your spouse too. Now, for you brothers who don't take care of yourself and you dirty, you nasty, or you irresponsible, shame on you, because you're not a good example of the scripture. But for those of you who actually care of yourself, care of your spouse the same way. It says, so ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. When you show love to your wife, she might not realize it in the moment, but the things that you're doing for her, you're doing them for yourself as well. She may not realize that the things that she's not willing to do is affecting you, and vice versa. It says, so ought men to love their wives. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth and cherisheth it, even as the Lord the church. See, nourish. Let's go back to 1 Timothy 4:6. It says, 1 Timothy 4 verse 6, if thou put the brethren in remembrance of these things, thou shalt be a good minister of Jesus Christ, nourished up in the words of faith and good doctrine, whereunto thou hast attained. See, when we nourish, we got to nourish each other in word of faith and of good doctrine. We got to nourish our wife in faith and good doctrine. And yes, there's more to go into this. But because the word itself encompasses so many things, that is covered there. So yes, I'm going to feed you. I'm going to clothe you. I'm going to provide shelter. I'm going to provide emotional support. I'm going to provide due benevolence. All of these things are a part of the nourishment process, and it's all taken from the scriptures. See, brothers, if you want to be more valuable to your wife outside of the bedroom, you got to get into this Bible. A woman should want a God-fearing man, a Christ-led man. And for brothers who work 6 days a week, play video games the other couple of hours of the day when they get home, eat, and go to bed, and not getting into the scriptures at all, you're not going to be valuable to that wife. Because she's not going to be in the scriptures either, and none of y'all are going to be led by Christ. And you're going to be needing all of this help, but help won't work because you won't take the medicine which is given to you in the scriptures here. Cherish. Go to 1 Kings 1 through 4. 1 Kings chapter 1. It says, now King David was old and stricken in years, and they covered him with clothes, but he got no heat. Wherefore his servant said unto him, let there be sought for my lord the king a young virgin, and let her stand before the king, and let her cherish him, and let her lie in thy bosom, that my lord the king may get heat. So they sought for a fair damsel throughout all the coast of Israel and found Abishag, a Shunammite, and brought her to the king. And the damsel was fair and cherished the king and ministered to him, but the king knew her not. All right. See, now I think we all know what the scriptures say when it says knew her not. That's a common phrase when it says, and he knew her, talking about sex. So they didn't have sex, but there was value of her being there, and that value was through being by cherishing the king. Cherishing means to protect and care for lovingly, to hold something dear, and to keep a hope or ambition in one's mind. She cherished the king. She kept him protected and cared for him and held him dear and provided the thing that he was missing. Not sex. That wasn't what he was missing. His old self was not worried about sex anymore. He was worried about heat. I am cold. And she provided what he needed. And see, as a husband, I just gave y'all an example of how the wife would cherish you, but you got to be the provider too. You got to protect and care for your wife. You got to hold her dear. You got to keep hope and ambition in one's mind that she's going to be able to get that kingdom. So you got to provide the heat sometime, brother. You got to provide the protection. You got to be the one that is there for your wife when she needs you, and not just be there only because she needs sex, but because she needs other things as well. Nourish, cherish. These are the things that Christ did for the body, and as a husband, you're supposed to be doing the same thing that Christ did for the church. You're supposed to do that for your spouse. See, we are supposed to be providers as men, spiritually, financially, emotionally, all these different ways, but providers nonetheless. You know, in 1 Timothy 5:8, it says, but if any provide not for his own, and especially those of his own house, he have denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. When we read the context of this chapter, we understand that it's really kind of talking about widows. But widows were the wives of men that passed away. And we have to understand that these men provided for their spouse. And now that the spouse is no longer there, they're not getting the things that they were being provided for in the past. Hopefully the brother had some inheritance to leave, a will, you know. But when those things were off, we as a people, then our secondary responsibility is to take care of others as well. So there were people who needed to help these widows. But understand that when you don't provide for your own, whatever the thing is that is needed beyond sex, okay, you're not providing sex, you're worse than an infidel, yes. If that's what's needed. As you see, David didn't need that in that moment. But we're talking about the real providing of things outside of sex. That's what we're talking about today. When the sex wears off, are you able to provide the other things that are needed? See, we're supposed to be protectors. We're supposed to conceal the faults, cover the infirmities, and help understand your best opportunities and options. You know, but some of us don't think about that. Some of us only think of, she look good, he look good. Some of us only think about, I can't wait for the opportunity to undress this person again and again. But we're not thinking about, after she put her clothes back on, then what? You know, a brother will go and get a wife. They have sex, but yet she can't make him no food afterwards because she can't cook. A sister will go and get a husband, they have sex, but she got to go back to her mama house when he done because he don't have a house to live in. It was on somebody else's couch, in somebody's car. We got to stop that. We got to start marrying with a thought process and a mindset of, all right, yeah, I'm attracted to her, and I can imagine all these different things we can do physically. But let me put that to the side for a minute. What value will she have, will he have for me outside of that? Is he going to just be worth this one thing and that's it? And maybe that's not as good as I thought it was because, you know, this ain't no try it before you buy it world that we live in. We as believers understand that you're not supposed to do it and then say, never mind, I don't want her no more. You're supposed to make the decision that you have all these other values. Okay, I'll marry you for those things, and it's an added bonus and benefit that I get the sex, because that's the least of your worries. That's supposed to be the thought process behind it. You see, let's go to Proverbs 31 real quick. Proverbs 31 says, the words of King Lemuel, the prophecy that his mother taught him. A king was being taught by his mother. And you got to read it all for yourself. I'm not going to read the whole chapter. Read the whole chapter. But he's being taught how to choose the right woman. A virtuous woman at that. And as I read through here, I'm going to start at verse 10. It says, who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. We referenced this earlier. The heart of a husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. See, when we read down, we're not going to see where mother said, the wife you choose, she need to be the best in the bed. She need to have these shapes and assets. That's nowhere to be found in here. You're going to find that the thing that is being told here is that the heart of the husband safely trusts in the wife. When you trust somebody, you're not worried about the decision making that they're going to make is going to be bad when you're not around. It says, so that he have no need of spoil, meaning he's not going to lack the prosperity by putting her as a focus, by bringing her into his life. See, a lot of women be the downfall of a brother. A lot of brothers be the downfall of a woman. But right now, we're talking about the woman right now. Stay in the spirit, sister. Stay in the spirit. Proverbs 31 is talking about what a man should look for in a woman. So we're talking about both the man and the woman, but we're talking about the qualities that a woman should have that a man should be looking for. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. You better find a sister that you feel confident that even when she's not the happiest with you, she ain't going to flip on you and be your worst enemy. She seeketh wool and flax and worketh willingly with her hands. You better find a woman that's willing to work. She is like the merchant ships and bringeth her food from afar. She rises also while it is yet night and giveth meat to her household and a portion to her maidens. See, when you find the right woman, she ain't going to sleep in all day. You ain't going to have to motivate her to get up. She is up and at it and is ready to provide for her household when they need it. And the thing is, if you don't have all of those qualities yet, that's the spot. That's the wrinkle. That's the blemish that the husband can clean. The husband will get you on point so that you will rise while it is yet night and give meat to your household. See, a lot of women want to be Proverbs 31 women, but not actually be applying any of the verses. But as a husband, hopefully you can get her there. She can read it all she wants, but if you don't hold her accountable to actually being a Proverbs 31 woman, being better than she is. Remember, that's the goal. If I get married to you, I want to be better than I was without you. She considereth a field and buyeth it. She's smart. And the fruit of her hands, she planteth a vineyard. She ain't going to give you all them GMO foods. It's all about the packaged plastic food. She girdeth her loins with strength and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that merchandise is good. She's smart with the money. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. She can get you fly brothers in the clothing. She stretcheth out her hand to the poor. She ain't all about herself. She'll help others. And she reacheth far her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates, and when he sitteth among the elders of the land. And that's a positive thing, that he's known and she's not distracting everybody from his greatness with her wickedness. She maketh fine linen and selleth it. She a businesswoman, and delivereth girdles unto the merchant. Strength and honor are her clothing. Not big booty. That's not her clothing. Not
big chest. No, that's not the thing. Not her sex game, but strength and honor. And she shall rejoice in time to come. She opened her mouth with wisdom because they've been dwelling according to knowledge. You chose a woman that was willing to follow and be in subjection and to take the correction. And in her tongue, there's a law of kindness. See, nowhere do you read, King Lemuel, you need to find someone where the sex game is going to be tight. No, you read well all these other values that are outside of sex. So it's an encouragement. There are brothers right now that are burning up for a woman, and they burning because they want sex. But my encouragement is, okay, yeah, that's what you want, but I pray that you want some other things more than that. I pray that that's the least value that you get in your relationship. I pray that sex, of all the things that you're getting, as good as it is, everything else is that much better. I'm not wishing that you have a bad sex life. I'm wishing that your sex life is great, but everything else is so much more valuable. Because when the sex wears off, what do you have left? You know, when the sex wore off, you when Tobit needed someone to help him, he had a wife named Anna who was able to do women's work, who was able to go out and help provide for the house in his time of need. Brother, if you go blind and you can't work and your sex, then what? Then what? What good are you? What good is your wife? Have value outside of sex. Sirach chapter 25, verse 1. In three things, Sirach in the Apocrypha, Ecclesiasticus. In three things I was beautified and stood up beautiful before God and men. The unity of brethren, the love of neighbors, and a man and a wife that agree together. That agreement comes in so many different ways. Sex may be one of them, but you better agree in keeping God's laws. You better agree that you're trying to be heirs to the throne of the kingdom. Don't let the only thing that you agree in is the bedroom. See, a lot of brothers and sisters like that. They fight and they argue all day, except for when they getting it in. Getting it in. Oh, I said something that's a little too grown up for somebody again. I apologize. I apologize for being real with y'all and making y'all think about something that's more important than sex. What's more important than sex is the fact that y'all can work together and accomplish greater things than you would have been able to accomplish alone. You know, if sex is the best part of your relationship, I feel sorry for you. Because God didn't intend for it to be that way. When God created a helpmeet for Adam, he didn't say, it's not good that man be alone, that he don't have nobody to have sex with. It said that he need a helpmeet like unto himself. And that was after the work that he was doing. When the sex wears off, you better bring some other value to the table. That's midweek meditations for this week. When the sex wears off. I see Esther came into the building. All praises. All praises. We had a couple more people join in. And even though we're about to end right now, you can still hit that share button. You can still bring a few other people in. You got Elijah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Amita, all joining in to the building. Hit the share button. Somebody need to hear when the sex wears off. Midweek meditations every week. We try to be here 5:30 Central. We got the website, midweekmeditations.com, where you can catch up. Last week we spoke about something that was very important to preclude what we talked about today when the sex wears off is, why did I get married? Why, brothers, are you getting married? Is it only for sex? Sisters, is it only for sex? I hope you get more value out of life than just sex. Thank you to those of you who've been helping. Midweek Meditations couldn't be where it is without you. You know, of all the views that we get, it's only happening because of loyal viewers like you, of the consistency that we have, the ability to be able to put on this broadcast and meditate with you guys publicly every week. That's because of your donations, of your time, for those of you who've been helping, for those of you who've been donating money, which is keeping the equipment running, giving me the ability to fix it when I need to fix it. As you know, we be having little technical difficulties. Lord's will, we do also get the opportunity to upgrade a little bit. I'm working on patchwork equipment, hand-me-down equipment. I'm doing the best I can with what I got, donating, to my own cause. But for those of you who are willing to donate, midweekmeditations.com/donate or donations, I believe. Let me check, make sure. /donation. And you can, do a one-time giving or a weekly giving or whatever you feel led to do to help us. Be mindful. I ain't going to buy no new shoes with this. I'm not going to be riding in a new Cadillac with this. Got my own job. I pay my own bills. However, the gospel can be preached a little bit further, can be spread a little bit quicker with your help. And that's what all this is going towards. So any help that you give, that's a brick to be put in for this truth, for this walk. And I want you to consider that as you think about, what have you done lately for the Lord? What value have you brought to the kingdom? Because we got to bring more value than sex to our husband, because the church got to bring more, don't be bringing sex as its value to Christ. That's not how it's going down. The members of the body bring forth gifts of spiritual gifts, of works, to help bring back the nation of Israel. So what do you have? All right. So all praises to the Most High. We're going to end right now. I see you, Ezekiel. I see you just sent me a message. Okay, so we'll talk. For anybody else, if you got topics that maybe you want to hear about, send me a message in the inbox. Nicole Bennett, I see you. Thank you for tuning in. All praises to the Most High. Passover's coming up soon. I pray I see some of y'all for Passover. All praises to the Father. Shalom.
Complete understanding.